Folks, we are live. Welcome to a very special Dungeons, Dragons, and Discourse slash random party generator brought to you to talk about Harn, believe it or not. I mean, it's something that's been around since almost the beginning of my gaming time in this hobby. So, because of that, we have Grant, and I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name. And I have a last name that nobody can pronounce anyway, but I'm going to take a stab at Dalgleish.
Oh, that's pretty close.
All right,
It's actually just two syllables, Dalgleish.
Dalgleish. All right,
Dalgleish. Okay.
fair enough.
Easier than it looks.
So, I see we have a number. Oh, even Bad Mike is in the one of our other regular co-hosts is in the chat. I'm sure we're going to get a good number of comments and queries about Harn. But Rob, I'm going to toss the virtual microphone to you because you are the in-party Harn master.
Yeah, I guess literally. So for those of you out there who don't know, Harn is a setting that was released in 1983 by Columbia Games. Grant here is the son of the owner of, and your dad and mom runs the company, right?
Well, we all do,
yeah. And you help, and they've been continuously. They never had a break in publication. They've been supporting Harn since 1983.
Yeah.
And now you have a Kickstarter, and this is not just any ordinary Kickstarter for your company. You're reprinting a core product. Why don't you tell us what it is?
Yeah, the core product, Harn World, which when it first came out was a two-part product. It had a Harn World and a Harn Dex as kind of two books, but really they're two chapters. So now they're in the same hardcover united. Harn World and Harn Dex, and we're including some other material that was published separately before called Lithia and Kathira about the planet that Harn is on and the continent adjacent to Harn. And those were also separate books before, and they're all bundled together because they make Harn World as an introduction to the whole thing, a much nicer, complete package. So we're excited about doing it that way, and really excited about the hardcover because we've done some now and we see how good they look.
Oh yeah, you got
this one. Yeah, Rob's reaching back there. That's a Caldor. And
yeah. Hold on, Rob. I'm going to give you a solo layout there for a sec so you can really.
This is Caldor. I believe that was your first.
Yeah.
And it's nice glossy pages, and it's full color, and it has all their standard Harn goodness, but in hardback.
Standard Harn goodness, but in hardback. That's a perfect description of what is going on here today with the hardcover of Harn World, and it's really exciting, and it's nice that it's being supported well and people are enthusiastic. That helps, and I'm really grateful. And it's when I think about it and reflect on it for the 40 years, it's a big team of people that did all this work, the writers and editors and illustrators, and it's a team of people all over the world. But then it all kind of came through the Columbia Games filter and mill, and my dad and Robin, and it's now today we have Brent Bailey as our chief editor, who's just really fantastic, and Richard Lushek, the illustrator, and all these people. When I think about their commitment to the idea and their longevity, and the way they approach it, it's the reason that they do it is out of love, and just like me, it's because it's a real place to us. Right? And so this book is just an homage to that, a very pretty version of that. You'll have the latest and greatest, and we're really excited to do it.
So you mentioned the author and editor and stuff, and a lot of them came, at least the present day team is from the fan base, is it not? The people who grown up with Harn and continue to play Harn, and some of them started working with you guys, right?
Absolutely, it is. It's organic in that sense, and it's still folks are still welcome to join that fold. They start out as a player and or a game master and fall in love and want to fill out maybe your part. Our writers' teams do develop according to what maybe interests them, and then we go through a submittal process to a team and editing. And there's quite a lot of editing that goes on, and the result comes out the other side with a fairly consistent, what we call Harnick voice. It's a topic that
Harnick voice. I like that.
Interesting topic, right? What does it even mean? Sort of a style of writing, fairly terse and short and to the point, active tone, and where every word is deliberate, every word counts, and if you can take a word out, we did. And so less is more, but it makes you really think about it, and makes it feel alive when you read it. So that voice, and we could talk about that all day just by itself, but the process of it becoming honed from what a writer submits into what gets published is an interesting process, and we give a lot of credit to right now to Brent Bailey, who's been the workhorse behind that for a long time now. And boy, oh boy, is it important, that concept. Yeah, anyway, it's a labor of love. We all love it. We all believe in it, and spend some of our days living there, for what it's worth. And
I mean, you just have to look into this.
And the nice thing too is that because it's medieval fantasy, which kind of, D&D in a way is also medieval fantasy. They add a few other things, especially over more the recent distance. It's usable with just about D&D or any other RPG that sprung from the same wellspring. I mean, I would take a city map, rotate it 90 degrees, and call that the town of Tane, and it works out.
You can do that, yeah. Borrow this, borrow that. The people that love Harn the most are world builder kind of people, right? That have ever created their own world or tried to. They love it because they see all of the material they can use, inspiration, and then sometimes they end up staying, come to Harn and end up staying, and they're certainly welcome.
John Miller has a great comment. Harn is the most realistic FRPG, fancy RPG world ever made, as far as I know. A beautiful creation developed over decades of product.
That's very well said. Yeah. And realistic is an interesting, term. What does it really mean? But it's at the end of the day, it's the realism is designed to help you tell a story. So role playing is all about storytelling, and immersive stories are the best. And so Harn World was actually designed for role playing, which is a little bit unique if you think about it, because a lot of stuff that we play these days is kind of shoehorned from another property, from a book or a movie or something. And then you're stuck with that, their lore. And Harn was actually conceived by Robin and then by my dad to be for role playing, which means that there's design choices, and they're interesting. We can talk about them quite a bit, but different kinds of design choices. The most well-known one, or the easiest one to explain, is the time calendar. How we wrote a history of Harn, a history up until the present day. And the present day is the year 720, Tusen Reckoning. That's the Harnick calendar. And in all the 40 years of publishing, we never pushed the timeline forward from there because that's not allowed. It's left for the game masters in their own personal Harn to to do that, right? And we'll never contradict it. But what you get in the product, in the book, in the world, is all of these setups, and they're things that could happen, and it's just dripping with them. They're everywhere. They're different types of them. And then that thing about designing it meant that they were able early on to kind of make sure that everything that you might ever want was there. So there's magic, of course, there's religion, but then they're both of those things blended into the culture so that they feel kind of natural and organic. And that's a bit of a style decision. It's the same with fantastical things like elves and dwarves and monsters. They're all there, and then they were then kind of deliberately worked into a position where you could consider them mythical if you wanted, or you could uncork them if you wanted. And all of that happens forward of 720 Harnick time, so I don't even know. That's up to you. But all these things just might happen. So people are talking about that right now in the comments. So
yeah, John Miller saying that. Another cool thing about Harn, no meta plot. The supplements are all set in the same year. The timeline never advances. No material is rendered obsolete.
Yeah, I got stuff from, it's a bit tattered. And, of course, when they updated the article, I filed them away. But let's see. Yeah, like this article from Earthmasters is from the original publication of Earthmaster. I forgot what product it appeared in. Probably the Evil module. Huh?
Meldrin Kingdom.
Meldrin. So, I mean, it's shorter than the current one, but it's still, all the information is still valid.
Yeah. Well, that's a rule. And it helps us to have these rules. We have to enforce them. But you never change anything that was written. You only expand it and improve and add more information. Drill down.
And a lot of people focused on, the fact it's medieval, and but it has a fantastic element to it in that, like there's the, and I may be pronouncing this wrong, Ivashu, is that how you say it?
That's how I say it.
Ivashus are created by a god named Ilvir, and so you could play around it. You could go in, all say, I'm going to use D&D with Harn, and now you have a whole bunch of you have a reason for any of the oddities of D&D, like chimeras and other weird creatures. You could just say they're created by the god Ilver, and it will fit in with the mythology of Harn. Or if you want realism, you can kind of leave that vague. Is it really Ilver creating these things, or is it something else?
You sure can. But the literature adds another nice element to that, which is that those Ivashu are unable to breed. And so there's a built-in control for the game master to unload as many monsters as you want. There's no stipulation or statement about how many, but it's sort of finite. And the souls of these creatures are recycled when they die or are killed, and then they may take form as a different Ivashu. But again, that's almost a label for anything you want, a catch-all for anything you want. So Ivashu can be ported in from other worlds, and Araka Kalai is the place in the center of Harn where this all happens. It could be thought of as a monster factory in a literal sense, but it's also got a control for the game master to work with. We can ramp it up or ramp it down. And then we built in a fascinating layer that was an Ivashu trade, as in there are people, clerics, who start, and other people get involved in the trade where they capture these creatures and take them to like gladiatorial arenas in the civilized areas. And that's a whole story. And so we can get into that story. And there's just dozens of these. But that's one, and it's a plot device. The Monster Factory is a plot device that you can use when you're playing up, down, sideways for how many monsters you want. And
That's perfect, really. You think
reel
about
it back in when you want to.
it keeps things in control, which is great. By the way, Don, who just donated $10. Thank you, Don. Don, Wizard Tower Games, the fact that you made a detailed history tells me the level of care put into this. This is really intriguing to me as a player, but also as a game master. And he wants to go back and ask, how did this, how did the actual era, it's an authentic feeling medieval setting, including the artwork on the Harn World book itself, which I feel like I can go back and look at some monks drawing this stuff out as they're reproducing it.
Yeah.
What when the founders of the company decided on working on this, what drew them to this exact era, this time frame, this look?
Well, medieval was the thing, right? Dungeons and Dragons is medieval, and
It is, but it's also Renaissance. It has all this other stuff kind of thrown into it. But once you start doing the medieval monk drawn artwork, you get an authenticity that other settings don't have. Forgotten Realms it's medieval. It's whatever. It's a hodgepodge.
right.
But Harn, we've all said it. Harn feels real, feels lethal. It feels like there's consequences to everything that your players will do or not do, which a lot of times gets hand waved in other types of settings and campaigns.
Yeah, Eric, if you could zoom in. So this is a
Yeah, give me a sec, Rob.
okay. I think this is what you're talking about, Eric. If you look at Harn illustration, there isn't spiky plate armor anywhere in this picture. You know, you got a guy in chainmail, and a bunch of archers and leather, and you got some barbarian tribesmen in their outfit. So it all looks like this is set in a time and very self-consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. To answer the question, though, it was a decision at the beginning to be in a period that the year 720 was then immediately loosely connected to the period around the Norman conquest, a little after that in England, and the mainland of Lithia that's off of Harn is a little bit like France, and up to the north there's an analog to Scandinavia, from whence Vikings came, and that was put there, though. Again, it was put there to be an analog to the Earth, for one thing, and that's nice because it's familiar. The climate that you would expect there and things like that is familiar. And then it was put there for a story, too. So those Vikings fight each other, and then they also conquered a section of northern Harn in Harnic history, and that subjugation of the people in that region we call Orbal is contested. There's 60,000 people that don't quite like it, and periodically, maybe every generation or so, they have a rebellion, and they're probably overdue for one about now in 720. So you can get involved in that, even in underground, and there's kind of a loose connection there also to the Irish, the Troubles and the IRA as an analog, which we did, I guess, a lot of, and sometimes you can't even notice it until you really, really think about it. But that really helped make things believable and real, I think. And then there's a layer back in the design of deliberate familiarity that we'll credit Robin with, and the team who shaped that vision into. It feels Earth-like. So Harn again, it's this island, and it's off the coast of this continent, and that in turn is on a planet, and that planet is called Kathira, and it's deliberately Earth-like. It's in size, in like the percentage of ocean versus land, and kind of the number of continents and where they're located, and it's got polar caps. It's Earth-like. It's also got one moon, and that one moon leads to tides that are kind of predictable and familiar from our understanding. And this was a deliberate choice also to help tell a better story. That's what it's about. So that some of it's familiar and can be assumed, and some of it is fantastical. But between those two, you got a story.
And the nice thing about your focus on when you said that you decided long ago to ground the 720 TR era and just in England, Western Europe after the Norman conquest, is that you also did, and this is to answer John Miller's question, what makes this product better than the RPG Pundit is another guy who writes RPG supplements that have a
Yeah.
authentic
Dark Albion.
feel. And there's Ars Magica, there's Shiver and Sorcery, but what Harn always excels in is making playable medieval. Between the writers and Robin, they said, okay, if I'm going to do medieval, what do I really need for my campaign? And they wrote it, and they wrote it well. And I don't think anybody has approached their utility. And now that we're 40 years in, nothing has been so well play tested for usability and utility. And that's what makes Harn the best medieval fantasy, I should say, setting out there.
Well, it certainly gives it its longevity, and it's people like you buying it that give it its make it the best. Because without that, we couldn't do it. So we do appreciate that. It is a holistic.
And I'm glad you guys found a way. I mean, it is a premium price product, no doubt, but because of that, I think you guys were able to persevere for 40 years without a break. There are companies out there who were back in the beginning, and then they had to quit doing stuff because they couldn't, whatever, and then they started up again. But Columbia Games has been chugging out not only Harn, but you're also known for your block war games as well.
Yeah. Well, I probably would attribute that mostly to stubbornness and my dad, because there were some lean years for sure. But when the product and the concept, it's the thing that is so precious that it can't ever be allowed to die. And I think now it's good for at least another 40 years and maybe longer. I mean, why not? It's now that it exists, it's immortal, and it's even taken on a life of its own in terms of community. And I suspect over the time that will probably magnify even more. There's people writing their own stuff, and it's really cool. And the fan and the lore of the public is extra creative, and there's like a multiplier effect, right? Because there's so many of them putting out so much stuff. It's really pretty cool. And some of it gets distilled and published and made quite quote unquote official. But even before that, there's some just great stuff.
So now your regular release, your Harn Quest that you release roughly one a quarter. Now that is the loose leaf format, right? Like this binder.
3-hole punch. Yeah.
Right. And you print this yourself, right? Did I understand that correctly?
I got a really fancy machine, but yeah, we crank them out.
Yeah, and as you guys can see, it's really good quality.
It is. It's good
yes,
paper, and it's good printing, and it's good stuff. And then the hardback books are, of course, a different way to present it, but that's the same. It's the same stuff. It's good stuff. Actually, the content, it's really the value.
Now that you have a few hardbacks out there. How's the hardbacks doing for you overall compared to the
Well, hey,
older,
we
the
sold
loose leaf ones?
we actually sold out of Caldor already. So it was only a little while ago, the first one. We sold out, and we're printing more um, a long time alongside this project, actually, to piggyback. Um,
Yeah,
on
you have a
this.
question about that. Do you know if you can say there would be a Caldor Civil War block game or a Burning Rethem?
I have seen and played with the former Caldoric Civil War block game, and tested it, and it's actually modeled on some of the other games that we've published. A little bit Wizard Kings, a little bit Richard III, a little bit Crusader Rex. Take those and kind of blend them all together, and you might have that. It needs work. It was submitted and designed by by David. I cannot remember right now. It's slipping my mind, but someone will tell me. And he's a real cool guy, and he sent it in, and he's worked really hard on it, and it deserves more attention. But that's. Remember, I was talking about how the public is multiplicative effect on they can put out stuff because they have just more of them and they got more time, and we're the opposite. Um, everything goes through us. So the answer to the question is yes, there will be such a game, especially the first one, because I know that. But I can't say when, and I can only admit to being overwhelmed. And now I'm busy with Harn World, and so I can't say when.
Well, I'll tell you this though. My friend never published it, but my campaign that I've ran for decades is called the Majestic Waterlands, and so my friend, I have a friend who really, sometimes he gets these bursts of inspiration, and he's a real hands-on guy, and he'll just make a game, and since 2000, he's fell in love with these Euro games like Settlers of Catan and stuff. And so he made his own based on my campaign. And it was kind of like a similar theme, a civil war. And we used it to resolve a back, what was happening in my world, which involved the Civil War. And so they say, hey, Rob, we want to really resolve this Civil War and get the campaign moving on to somewhere else. It's okay. Why don't we try that game he made? And we did. We fought it out. I recorded the result, blogged about it, and then and I made it part of my background and advanced the timeline 20 years in my setting, and it worked out great. And even though I know you're not going to, you said you're going to keep the timeline at 720. A game like that Civil War game would be great for DMs who want to advance their Harn timelines.
Oh yeah, and you can then play it more than once, and try it and have a different outcome. Or maybe that's a violation of your own Harn.
John Miller has a question, or it's a statement, a question. He prefers the old bound books and the new hardcovers to the loose leaf products. What were the reasons for the move to the loose leaf editions? Saving on printing costs? Rob could tell you, just like mine is packed away, but Rob could show you his original Harn, which was originally loose leaf pages. Yeah, we're going to get you, and then somebody else wants to see an example of the hardcover when you get done with this. But
so this was what John talking about, the original Harn in two booklets, packed with stuff, but pretty thin. And you got a folder where you can keep your stuff, including your Harn map. But the thing is, those early products, half of them were bound and half of them were loose leaf. And, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Grant, but I think it was guys like me who wanted to keep on using the loose leaf because we got all these binders. And
well, I would say it's pluses and minuses there. There's people that swear by it and people that would prefer the other, and in the end, a balance might be where we end up. But the purpose of it and the argument for it is that it enables us, a small company, to keep a large catalog with a lot of items available in print at the same time without an enormous inventory problem, because there's so much content. And so if we had hardcover books about everything, I'd have a lot of hardcover books. And
That's right, because you have your own printer.
It's not that we couldn't do it. I mean, technically, of course you could. But you find what happens is when you sell out of one, then what? The book is gone. And if your cash flow isn't really good, you can't print it again without maybe going back and doing yet another Kickstarter or something. That's not practical all the time for every edition of everything. So that's where that came from. It's that we wanted to be able to have a lot of stuff. And oh, look, he's showing us the Retham by request of Martin here. That's what they really look like, yeah. And the Harn world is about twice that thick. It weighs about 3 pounds, and it's going to be awesome.
Oh yeah, actually, I can see if I can show that. Yeah. So now I printed this myself, so it's not the same paper size, but this regular bond paper, this is how thick the Harn deck and the Harn World articles on, and probably the Lithia and Celestia will add a little bit more to it. It's going to be a pretty hefty book.
It is. It's a piece of work, yeah. I'm really excited about it. Like, you just hold it in your hand and feel it. It's gonna be cool. And this question being asked right now about the local game stores, friendly local game stores, is yes, the books are welcome to be distributed via your local store. If you have a store that you think should have them, go down and ask them to give them a call or give their distributor a call and ask for it. I do think that probably was the loose leaf was not suitable for that audience, that distribution. Like, it just doesn't work in the stores. So that was sold direct, and that's the way it is. And the stuff that is in the hardback should absolutely be in frankly in every store, especially the main book. It's a beautiful resource for anyone, any kind of role player, anyone. Just chock-a-block full of stuff. Question being asked now about Lithia. Is Lithia material new? Not really. Lithia was designed and written a long time ago. What is new is that it's being incorporated into this book, and it does fit well in this book. But previously there was a product called Lithia. It certainly any things that typos and things got fixed and will be fixed, but the overall material is classic.
Oh, hardcovers have thread binding. Very nice.
Yeah, spared no expense.
Let me see if I can catch up to the last of the comments.
Yeah, they're coming fast and furious. I can hardly.
Yeah. All right. So now, so essentially, this Kickstarter, from what I was looking at as I scroll back up the page, it includes a lot of content, a lot of usable content for a GM, even a player. But it's really
meant for GMs, but anybody can enjoy it. And if it might make you become the GM if you're the player, if you find that you like it.
So you have Harn World, the Harn decks, Kethira, Lithia, cities and towns. You get the physical map, and I was showing the physical map on the screen before. The map is an iconic map. The moment I pulled it up on the screen, I'm like, I remembered it from going on nearly 40 years now for me. And you're also including the PDF version. And I have to say, as somebody who likes to use my PDFs as a way to refer to stuff and read in bed, and I keep my wife up. I love having PDFs. I love it when they're. I don't have to pay extra to get a PDF version of my Dead Free version. So I personally thank you.
Awesome.
You know, I think that's
So
good.
if you want to, if folks want to see the physical map, I have good Lord, I have like 4 of these, but
Upside down.
wrong way.
Hold on.
There we go.
There you go, Rob. Hide behind the map, Rob. Hide behind the map. There you go.
Yeah.
No
This is not a
attention to the wizard
screenshot, folks.
behind the Harn map.
Yeah, I mean folding it. The screenshot can't do that. So this is old school, huge ass map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have the Harn map up there. And if you ever get the physical copy of Ivina, that is the Ivina map right there, home of the Vikings. But this is an excellent map. I love it. In fact, I loved it so much. I hope you forgive me, Grant, but I reverse engineered the style.
You're allowed.
I hand drew it when I had to replace my Waterlands map. I learned how to draw this by hand. Now I'm not an artist, so it's kind of scribbly looking. But then when it came to computers, that's where I really came in my own and figured out how to draw my own take. Not quite like what you guys do, but I really like your style because you have your hills, and then which are the terrain, and then you have the color for the vegetation, so you can have hills on top of vegetation, and it all looks natural, like you're looking on a satellite map. But it's clear what you're looking at. You know where the hills
simultaneously useful and accurate, and also artistic. And you mentioned something about that earlier too. It made me think when you were talking about the essential elements of medieval, say, life being captured in Harn World, in that short product, the original Harn World, and how that was kind of captured and distilled or synthesized down from what it could have been, because it could be anything really. That's a skill that I give all the credit to my dad, because that's what he's good at. He's good at it with the board games too. He just throws out what's not important, gives you what is important to give you the feel of what you're doing and allow you to be fully immersed in it without things that take you back out. So it worked. It's in the whole design. It's in the writing and the interconnectivity, the feudal structure that exists in most of Harn. And of course, there's more than one structure too, more than one government and more than one region, more than one culture. But feudal is probably the main one and around in the most areas, and the most recognizable to all of you. And that how he drew that out, where the king and there are barons or earls that owe fealty to the king, and they have lands, and those are castles or keeps, and then there's also below them people holding manors or even other keeps that in turn hold fealty upward up the chain to a baron, or then to an earl, or sometimes directly to the crown. And then the crown sometimes holds its own places manned by a constable. And this is all muddled up in a place like Caldor, for example. You look at a map of Caldor from a political standpoint, where the colors are identify the groupings, the factions. They're all mixed up, and that's kind of deliberate because they evolved that way. But it's a strategy by kings to prevent concentrations of power, and wherever you see it, it goes bad. In Rethem, for example, there's a concentration of power north of Rethem proper in the Earl of Tormau, who's probably stronger than the king, and that can happen. Anyway, all that stuff is all documented, and it's charted like a genealogy, or also a web of relationships, and it's so much part of the story. You can run with that in so many different directions, but it's just, as far as I know, there's nothing really else like it that gives you that feel of a real place where it all fits together.
Well, you can rest assured that you probably got it right, because what happened in one of my campaigns involved through hard work on the players. One of them rose to the rank of a ducal title, and they were kind of independent, and they agreed to swear fealty to a neighboring king, and as part of the negotiation. And the king kind of got him over. They kind of needed each other, so there was some give and take. But the king said, "Okay, this is your territory, but I want this, this, and this." And the player saw, okay, the king's trying to worm his way into my land, and so what? So I can't rebel. Wait a minute here, and and they squirmed, because the king was trying to sub-infeudate them. So the player was an ally, not a threat to his power, and it was just, and the accentuation eventually evolved into something. I was able to get the player to agree to something like what happened in Harn, and you guys did a great job of capturing that feel in a way that doesn't make me feel like I have a degree in medieval history.
Well, it's all again designed so that the story, that you can join the story, and you can join it at any level. You can be in the high level power movers and shakers politics, like earls and kings, or you can live in a city and be involved in a guild or a craft, or on a manor and the life, the rural life, and there's room for any of that, plus all the different cultures, and I think it's endless. Frankly, it's endless to play with. It's endless to develop, and it's a wonderful problem to have. So,
well, one of the things that struck out at me that just comes to mind is Golotha. You had this dock area, and underneath this dock area, all these people have their boats tied up, and they live there. It's like a little town under the dock and they have catwalks that go between the boats, and it's like this whole underdock stuff that's kind of dangerous to walk around.
Yeah, and it's the seedy part of town, right? Yeah, that's one of many really fascinating parts that was described in different parts of Harn, and Golotha being a city in the west of Harn that's right at the mouth of a river, and it's almost underwater, and it's a place that's ripe for different kinds of adventure, and yet there are 7 such cities around Harn, and each one is a little bit different, and kind of a showpiece for that culture, so that players can understand, readers can understand what it's like and where they can go with it. There's a question on the screen here. I can answer that. Of course I did. Absolutely. I played with all kinds of things. And especially when I was a kid, I remember even like a little kid, just preferring to play with what my friends wanted to play with. I had the same problem the game masters have today about getting their friends to play with Harn or Harn Master way back then. And so I played with lots of other things. These days, if we're playing, a lot of times I like to play things at conventions, and the Harn Master might be the rule system, but it's rarely actually invoked because it's more about the story. And I like convention events that are LARP type related. There's a wonderful event that Carrie Mold wrote up about the Caldoric succession crisis. There's a whole thing. It's again part of that 720. We stop the history there. where a king is old and ailing, and there's going to be a crisis when he dies, and we never tell you quite how it works out, but we do tell you how it could work out, because we tell you who is interested in becoming king and their motives and their connections and their loyalties. And there's quite a few sections on that in the Caldor book. And Kerry Mold wrote up a game to play it. It was really cool. I played it more than once. And you take on the character, all these high-powered people, and you try to make alliances, real world, talking to people, like diplomacy, just talking to people, making deals. And if you get enough people on your side, you might become king. And there might also be a war, and it was the game master who kind of worked it out. But he actually had a structure. It was power points. You were trying to get the most power points. So that is almost like as simple as it gets. There was no character generation or combat. There was just PowerPoints and relationships. And you could offer like your gold or your land or your daughter or whatever to make a deal. But there weren't any rules aside from what the game master had structured out about points, and he had cards that had some events and some narrative things, but largely speaking, it was about what players did. And that's how I like it, because the story is more important.
And this was all in the original Harn, so you guys kind of have Game of Thrones before Martin wrote Game of Thrones.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, this is pretty ancient stuff, man. It makes us feel old. And I think, I don't know if the inspiration is mutual or what, but it does feel somewhat similar. So I think it's a good analog. It's good for people to understand. It's gritty like Game of Thrones. It feels real like Game of Thrones with fantasy, but kind of real. And so the analogy is good. It's useful, shall we say.
Well, that's why I put the warning up on the screen that you have on the Kickstarter. Warning: unlike other fantasy role-playing environments, the Harn world setting and cities of Harn include some unpleasant but realistic aspects of real-world medieval life, including violence and sexual themes.
Ooh.
And we look at publishers like Paizo and Wizard of the Coast, and they keep on seeming to scratch certain potential themes off their list, putting onto the verboten list, including things like, well, if you depict slavery as a bad thing, is even a bad thing.
Right.
It's like, I mean, go back to the Middle Ages. The Irish were being traded back and forth as slaves. Some even came over to the United States as slaves, or equivalent of. So this was part of the history. And if you're going to be authentic, you have to be authentic in the way it's presented. You can't just. I like the fact that you aren't going to whitewash. I mean, listen, I'm 55. I started gaming when I was like 13 with the AD&D books, and you had to up your game. You had to be a bit more mature to get yourself through those books and read them and understand what was being presented to you. And the idea of making, I don't know, any setting or any game system vanilla, or as the MMO players call it, Care Bear, annoys me because, again, I'm an adult. I'm not saying that I want like violence and gore and raping and pillaging, but I want stories that are realistic, stories that can reflect the real world at that time. And I think something like Harn allows that to be presented, and I'm glad there's a place for Harn. I really am.
And the nice thing is Harn doesn't revel in it. I mean, it
No.
presents it, and if you know your history, you know how horrible it is, but it doesn't. The product itself, you guys do a good job of explaining the situation, and then it doesn't revel in it. It's a matter of fact, and it's clearly the places where that kind of stuff is dominant and part of major part of the culture are clearly unpleasant places to be in Harn, you know?
It's a rough and tumble kind of place, and things happen, and so that little warning is actually deliberately provocative, of course, and it's a stimulator of discussion, which is good.
It should. It literally. It should be. We've seen Wizards of the Coast recently try to cast. I guess in their Spelljammer product, they claimed the revised history of a creature, which added a period where they were slaves. Tried to throw it back to the timing frame of when we were gaming in the 80s and 90s, and actually it was a revision made by Wizards of the Coast in like 2004. So I mean, it's like, why? First off, if you're not gonna touch the topic, then why did you include it in the first place? Which is another question. But there's a knee-jerk reaction by especially, I think, Wizards of the Coast to blame gaming of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s with all these. It wasn't a good time to be gaming. It was bad. This is awesome. Harn hasn't changed. Harn is like looking at a piece of gaming history that you can put into your hands right now, and it is just as it was then. It's not like D&D, which went from like advanced D&D first edition now to 1 D&D 6th edition. You can pick up your Harn material. I can go into my closet and dig it out, and it's just as viable. It's just going to be as compatible with anything from Harn that's coming out in the last 5 years as the last 35 years.
And the thing I got to give them kudos for, even though they have their own RPG. I'm holding the first edition here. But even though you guys came out with your own RPG, you still kept the actual Harn World stuff, including the book you're about to come out, systemless.
Yes.
Systemless, yeah, which was the original intention, yeah. And all that stuff, it's like a primary source, like in academia, it like that's the way to think of it. It's original content that tells a story, and it's really real. And so we can't change it. We can only add to it and improve upon it in truth to it. And so that's a process with writers and editors especially, that we call canon checking. And you check an article or submission against what was written before everywhere. And it's easier than it used to be because we got digital files and databases to search and stuff. But it's a skill and an art to do that. And it's part of the whole thing. It's part of the consistency. It's part of the voice. And it's part of the product, ultimately. So
if I can ask a speculative question here. So now that Wizards released D&D 5e to Creative Commons, not even the open game license anymore, but Creative Commons, where all you have to do is give them credit, and you don't have to make your own product open. You guys think you're going to be doing anything with 5e? I mean, kind of like what you do with Harn Masters. It's a parallel line, but so Harn will still be systemless, but you'll have an official, maybe 5e compatible set of stuff.
There are, yeah, that becomes more above board because of that. It's great. On place like Drive-Thru and his own website, a really good guy named Bill Gant wrote up some guides for 5e Harn. Two of them, a Harn World and a Bestiary monster manual type thing, and they are pay what you want by donation on Drive-Thru, and we kind of had to do that way. Bill sent them to us, and we wanted to support it, but we were concerned about the terms of that license and stuff like that. So it's back on the table now, and that's interesting. I'd like to brainstorm about it some more. But in the meantime, folks can go to Drive-Thru and look up Look up Harn or D&D Harn, and you'll find it. It's Warflail is his handle, and it's Bill Gant. Good guy, good stuff, and it's really easy to imagine how that works. It translates beautifully. He did a lot of work to do it, and when you do it and you read it, it just flows. You're like, oh yeah, that maps to that, and that maps to this, and it just feels right. So he did a lot of work, and we're pleased with that, and I want to let everyone know about it.
Awesome.
Maybe we'll have to figure out an OSR rule set for Harn.
Well, that would have to be you, Rob.
Yeah.
Come on, we're gonna throw that where that one belongs. It looks like you picked up a few backers as the show went on. I know Don Samora, Wizard Tower Games. I know Bad Mike of North Texas Con. I know they both announced that they were backing it. I still have to do my backing. That will happen after the show. But
we appreciate it.
Well, because I'll be honest with you, Harn is that product that I pull out of my gaming closet. Of you have the stuff you put into storage because you're not going to use it again, and then you have the stuff that you have on that top shelf of the gaming closet that you will pull out every 4 or 5 years to look at and read and reminisce about your times playing with it. And Harn fits into that category for me. But it's all, again, I haven't my recent purchase of Harn. I don't think I've purchased anything of Harn in physical, maybe PDF, but in physical probably in at least 25 years. I was probably still in just out of college. But this is the setting that when I didn't want my players in Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms, which was very much fantasy before medieval, if I wanted to put them something that was medieval with fantasy flavors, I mean, where you could play in a setting and it didn't take too much suspension of disbelief to feel like you were in medieval Europe, maybe as the locals would have seen magic, but it really happened. Like, they believed in it, but now it's real, as opposed to Greyhawk and the Forgotten Realms, where it always felt it was default. It was just there. You wondered why there weren't magical streetlights in every city or every town.
Right. If there's that much magic or that much money, it throws things out of whack from a common sense point of view.
Right.
There's something that was in the original design of Harmworld. It's monsters, money, and mayhem all in balance, and it was part of the concept. It's better. It's where less is more. It's where it's the story about the dragon and not lots of dragons. It's the dragon or the treasure chest, or it's just not a common thing. And money on Harn is presented as pretty rare. It's a special thing when you have money, actual coin.
Right.
There's an economy. The economy operates a lot on trade and obligation, and so many acres of this produces so many bushels of that, and you owe it to your liege. And the people that actually have the coins in the cities mainly, and it's much rarer and special, and so a treasure trove, if someone ever found it, is like winning a Powerball. It's potentially destabilizing. So it's not presented as a main thing in Harn. Of course, there's no rule. There's no the world could support anything. There's places that are described that very well could have treasure troves in them, because there's all kinds of potential myths and stories as well. But the real world operates a little more like those are outlying things that happen once in a while, and the rest of us never see that.
Right. It's like the treasure hoards found in England by the metal detectors and the coin collectors, where they find where soldiers buried their coins before going into battle, and then died in battle and never got to dig out their coins. Certain professions, like if you're in the military, you were getting paid in coin because you didn't have a home per se where you were settling down. That's how you're drawing, and then you traveled with you. So there are treasure hoards, but they are not going to be the treasure hoards that we would expect.
Yeah,
On Great
maybe a
Hall.
little pocket of silver or something.
Yeah.
But if you did want to buy a home, you just get the real estate article, and they will tell you how to buy a home in Harn.
Yeah, it's true. It's trippy. We have that an article about real estate, an article about it connects up with the manor stuff too, about how manorial economics works. But we have that, both of those, and supply and demand inside the kingdom articles. It's it's been spelled out where the shortages and the surpluses of various commodities are located, and it sets up natural caravan routes back and forth, and adventure and story. Again, the point story. And we have presented believable reasons for parts of a story by telling you that there's a need for certain things in certain places and a surplus of that in another place, and so a natural reason for seeing that move. And then you can have all kinds of story along the way.
So I can tell you, thanks to the good work that your dad and Robin did, Harn restored the value of a gold piece in my campaign. So what I did very early on, sometime in the middle 80s, a little bit later, I got the Harn stuff. I started using it, but then I did and found out it was a real winner, is that I converted all my prices in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons to silver pieces. And then I said, the gold piece is actually worth 320 silver. And I called it the gold crown, just the same as Harn. And when people see, I found 5 gold crowns, and their light lights up. Now, if they're a novice, it doesn't light up because they're 5. Why is everybody getting excited about 5 crowns? And then when they think in how much value it is in the 5 gold crown, then they start taking it. Wow. And it's really great. I highly recommend having like something like silver be your base coin, then one really valuable coin that's not common, but you can still find it, like Harn's gold crown.
Yeah, they're only presented as being made really rarely and by dwarves probably, and just way too valuable to put in one place at one time. But it's a neat thing how that's all been spelled out. It feels real, and it creates opportunities for story. The economic motivation, follow the money. It's layered throughout Harn. And I think the realistic economics are one of the big reasons.
Now, we were talking about some of the stuff that we found in Harn and the flexibility. We forgot to mention one thing. Harn has dungeons.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, Earthmaster sites, and you have a few other oddball sites that can be explored, like the
Graz is a dungeon for sure.
But you have like a above ground ruins here, and then of course a dungeon map. And a lot of these dungeon maps would have a little notation where you have an exit, and it doesn't go anywhere on the map. It's noted as for DM expansion.
That's right. Oh yeah, and that was an original design decision too. If you look at the city maps as an example, even scroll down in this Kickstarter if you want, you'll see a city map where there are buildings, clearly the outlines of buildings, and then there's inside these products, you'll see a key with numbers on the buildings, but not every building. Keep going. There you go, right there. Just pause there, and then there you go. Perfect. You see the key, the numbers, and you'll notice that not every building has been filled in, and that is to leave room for the game masters to run with it in their own P Harn, who lives in the building between 9 and 11. It's up to you, but we spelled out the rest of it and made sure that the city, for example, and that's from Sharan, that section, that city is sort of written up to really work, which means we know the population and we know the economy, and we kind of made sure that there's the right number of metalsmiths and blacksmiths and millers, the right number of glass workers for the population, and it's all intricately connected up so that you could believe that the city would really function.
And it's modular, so you only have to go in as deep as you want to.
Yeah, as deep as you want.
You don't have to get the whole thing to get use out of, say, Harn World. You can just stick with Harn World and get a lot of mileage out of it, or you can start buying the cities and the other articles.
Yeah, I think everybody needs the Harn World to kind of understand it all, but after that, the stuff on lithia.com, it would keep you going for years if you wanted. Your own imagination, of course, and then maybe 1 or 2 books. But I will warn folks that it's a little bit addictive, and you might find that you can't resist collecting it.
Hey, and being a longtime Harn fan and a patron, frequently Lithia, I really appreciate Columbia Games allowing all the folks on Lithia to do what they do. And Eric, I gave some links to some stuff on Lithia, and so if people want to see, are still leery about buying in, and you want to see what kind of detail that Harn gets to it, there is a 4-part series on Lithia called Harn Pottage. It's not tied to any specific place in Harn. It's really meant for DMs who need, say, like a quarry or a cottage or an NPC. But it's a bunch of articles. That's why they call it a pottage. It's a bunch of random stuff, really, but it's done at the same quality level as Columbia Games does it. And so if you want to get a taste, and the 4th one even has a complete city. So you can see how that works. So Eric is posting the link to that, and that's by the fans.
Yeah,
and awesome? Those fans are so dedicated to Harn that they pay Richard Luschek to do illustrations for many of this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true too, because they want it to fit the style, and Richard's style is the Harnick style, and like the Harnick voice. You can't do it without it. Right? You just can't. And I think that's kind of special. I mean,
I know. I hired him myself for my own thing.
Yeah. All right. The links are up. And I do believe, I think the count is now, as the live stream was going on. Yeah, I think we've picked up 4 backers.
Right on.
Hour plus. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby for a day's work.
Like I said, I'll be 665 after we log off, so that takes care of that. But no, this was really good because, again, when I came into gaming, we had Greyhawk, and I think I found Harn before I found Forgotten Realms. And those were the 3 settings that I bounced back and forth between when I was GMing. I was the D&D GM in my group. I was told that I cannot play. I had a GM. Everything else, everybody else could run, but that was my wheelhouse. And depending on whether I wanted to put effort or not into what I was going to run, depended on whether I was going to use Harn. Harn required a little effort because Harn went a little bit deeper. And at the same time, it was a light touch. Whereas Forgotten Realms spelled out everything and gave you no freedom, but everything on a plate. And Greyhawk was built with, I think, military campaigns in mind. So
it had the howling emptiness of the 30-mile hex.
Yes.
It was so weird because after I put that in my blog, it started spreading everywhere. Like, I'll take credit for that one little bit of trivia, but yeah, what happened was I saw Greyhawk and Dragon magazine and was really excited to get it. I get it, and it had potential. I mean, he goes into the history, shows migratory pattern, and gives the military figures. And then I started playing it. I was in junior high school at the time. And I just didn't have the experience to make those 30-mile to fill those 40-mile hex stuff.
It
Now, unfortunately, this
didn't
was
work when I-
1980.
yeah. Didn't
So
work
the
for us.
next thing I got onto was the Waterland. But if I had found Harn, now Harn did the same thing. In fact, I when I got Harn, I merged it in with the Waterlands and started using the bits and pieces you guys started to release, especially cities, for it to fill out stuff that was missing in the Waterland. But Harn had the right level of detail as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. Cal, get it.
There you go. Like that one. Good comment from Cal. I remember those ads.
Oh, I
You
remember.
know that ad in Dragon Magazine where you had that silhouette of the castle and the mist floating in front of it? I don't know. That was really evocative of adventure. Like, this is a place you got to go see.
Yeah, it worked way back then, and it was probably also because there was nothing, so few choices on the.
Yeah, this illustration.
But really, it's still a case of awareness, right? Not very many people actually know about Harn, and I sure hope that this one reaches more people. And each time we do it, we reach some more people, and they're always welcome.
Well, it's the perfect setting to combat edition change, because if you do change editions, you can just bring the setting with you. It's system neutral. That was kind of like when Frog God was talking about releasing the Lost Lands, the default setting, as an actual setting release, as opposed instead of referring to it in their various adventure modules. I worked with them a bit, and my suggestion was, if you're going to do that, make it system neutral, because then you can play it with anything. Settings don't need to be grounded in the system as much as other material does, because it's there to inspire. It's there to give you a wide brush, as opposed to the focusedness of an adventure. And I think Harn has mastered that right from the beginning, because most of my material is again, 25 years or older for Harn, and it's still in my pile of stuff that I reread or relook at and feel and touch every couple of years.
So I have a question. So over the years, there's been spurts of publication for Harn. So we started out with the original folio, and then we had Cities of Harn, and you guys tried to do stuff with the Encyclopedia Harnica, and you got through like 12 of those, and with the parchment articles, and then you started switching to the Kingdom books, also parchment, and then you got, like in the 90s, you changed to a white paper, but the most recent one, okay, so let's call the hardback that you're doing now like the fifth wave. But it really all started with the fourth wave when you went to color, and like around 2010. What really ignited getting all these articles and stuff? You really started getting back on a regular schedule and stuff like that.
Sheer willpower. Yeah, it was a conscious decision to add a lot of color too. But I think the team just gelled, and Brent Bailey, probably the main reason that he took the mantle from a guy named John Scamato, who had done the job, and he took it to a whole nother level where it became really efficient, and the stuff that went through Brent came to my dad pardon me, in really good shape, and that was new. That was kind of new. Usually things were submitted, and you look at them and you shake your head like, there's just too much work here. I got to rewrite this whole thing, and that's what Brent actually does, but he manages to do that without irritating the people he's working with. And that's something that we have not that much skill at, because a rewrite it sometimes doesn't go over all that well with the writer. Pardon me.
Cal, it is launched right now. It is live. You can go to the link on the bottom of the screen if you can't type in Harn and Kickstarter. The link on the bottom of the screen, tenkars-tavern.games/Harn, will take you right to the Kickstarter, and you can join the nearly half dozen who have already joined as this launch has been going on.
Sure. You might also wonder when it's coming out. It's should be out in June. We'll have the book.
Well, that's a quick turnaround for a Kickstarter.
Yeah,
So
we're not fooling around. We've done the four Kingdom books here in a row, and we've got some more to finish the series. So we've got this dialed in, and so we know how to deliver. I feel confident in that, and proud of this stuff, as I've been saying all along here.
Cool. Well, let me slide back up to.
So, are you guys going to cover all of Ivina as well? In the same
in due time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Notice we started mapping it. We've got these maps we call the Atlas Harnica series of maps that drill down to a grid square from the big Harn map. So the grid like A1, J4, or whatever, that's the grid coordinates on the big Harn map. And we've got these maps that you can buy of J4. It zooms right in where the hexes, and they line up. So they go to like a very smooth and fluid zoom. What is in that hex at one scale is in that hex at the next scale. So that's the Atlas Harnica series, and we have started the Ivinia Atlas series as well lately. So,
well, you guys are doing something really cool with it, because I mean, I don't know if you realize this, but apparently the entire map of Harn is actually embedded in those PDFs you sell. You know, I opened it up because I wanted to crop something, and I noticed, wait a minute, this extends way beyond the boundary.
sure.
So what
It's
your dad is actually doing, drawing the entire map in one file, and then crops out the individual map square for that particular product, right?
Yeah, and the real map is something like 12 feet across. It's massive, yeah. And there's just one live file, and computer is pushed to its limit working on it. But
Well,
it does.
when I realized you guys did that a couple of years ago, that solved the problem for me, because
Oh, wow.
I was contracted by Judges Guild to do the Waterlands map, which is a grid of 3 by 6 maps. And then it occurred to me, you know, I would save a lot of editing, because joining maps, there's always a problem, and I would save myself a lot of editing if I drew it as one giant 5 foot wide, 8 foot high map. And I did, and it worked out great. I completed the project far sooner than I otherwise would have. And that was that, and your dad kind of helped with that inadvertently.
Well, that's awesome. That's a bonus effect for sure. It does inspire people sometimes, and send them down a path where they end up becoming writers. That's something that's really special when that happens. USPS. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Nothing you can do. I don't advise violence against any postal workers, because they do shoot back. But
we've been replacing books for people that got dinged up, because 90%, 95%, maybe even 98% get there okay. So if you really did, send me a picture. I'll replace it, because it's uncool. But I package them really well. Those books are double packaged in an envelope, and a padded envelope, and then in a box, and it's amazing that they don't get that.
There are times when you're gonna fail your save, and it's guaranteed. It happened with me with my Hyperborea, and thankfully it wasn't the faux leather covers that got damaged, but the core book of the regular printing. The Postal Service looked like they tried to move a truck into the box, and it was not just boxed well. It was wrapped in like 7 layers of bubble wrap, and they still manage to penetrate it. It's like, you know,
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what you
How-
do. Once in a while, there's the odd bad one, and we replace them for sure. It's not a challenge to make that conclusion. We do what's right.
Yes, Don, with Tower Games, replacing damaged goods by someone who you have no control over speaks loudly to your integrity and care for your customers.
There, thank you. That's nice to hear.
Mr. Gunn, I know USPS hates Harn. CGI's customer service is awesome. Penny always takes good care of me.
Yeah, that's pretty great. That's my mother, Penny. He's
Okay.
yeah, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, I always gotten friendly service.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. This is a friendly business. We're selling fun. We really might as well have fun.
All right, we're going back to Satanic Panic. You now have 666 backers. So, So I think, folks, on that note, we're coming up on we've done an hour and 20.
You were the 666, Eric?
No, I'm gonna be 667. I haven't even look. I thought to back this product.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, it's not me. It will. I'll be on that list soon.
So, do you have any question? You've been silent this whole time. You got to have one Harn question.
They've all been answered.
I gotta say,
I'm a Harn neophyte. I'm just one of those guys who saw the ad Dragon magazines. Oh, that's nice, and then went back to read whatever the hell they were publishing. But I was always been aware of Harn in the background there in my 40 plus years of gaming. Just nobody ever brought it up or even was even aware of it in my area. So, but like I said, I'm a late bloomer to gaming, in my early 20s. So, sorry.
I was lucky because in New York City we had the Complete Strategist, and I even had a local game store out in Queens that was pretty good at carrying stuff beyond just the TSR era stuff at that time. So I could go and shop and find stuff. But now with the internet, I can shop from my desk. I can bring it here, and back a Kickstarter or order stuff directly, which you couldn't do back then. I mean, I did a mail order from TSR, and I'm not going to say that I know for sure that Ernie Gygax was the one that was running the Dungeon Hobby Shop, but two people named Eric made orders, and the orders got crisscrossed, and somebody got my poster, an Larry Elmore poster, and one of the complete player handbooks that I was supposed to get, and I got 11 complete player handbooks that some other Eric was supposed to get, and then I was getting phone calls left on my answer machine that I had to send it back at my own cost. And when I heard my own cost, needless to say, I never contacted anybody at that number at all.
But anyway, what that being said and what I've said, this looks like a very, very nice Kickstarter from what you told me, and I will talk to the wife and see if we can free up the funds to back this thing. But I'm very excited for you. This is going to be a great product.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like Harn, I always found Harn to be modular. I could reach into it and find something that I could drop into, I don't know, Forgotten Realms if I wanted a keep or a manor, or I needed something a town. Even if I wasn't going to use the setting as it was, I was always going back to my Harn material for whatever setting I was in. And I can't say that for the Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk. I didn't go back to them if I was playing in Harn to pull something out.
Mm-hmm. I'm always for like grabbing stuff out of other places and plopping them in your world. Always.
By the way,
Now,
Mr. Gunn has advice for you. Pay now, endure pain later.
I'd love to, but we're getting ready to move again, so
she'll find out. Ask.
Yeah.
So
doggone it.
So, guys, you guys listen to this, they're selling the hardbacks, but they do have a regular subscription, Harn Quest, and it does come with a benefit. The Harn Quest is what is 35, 25 a month, a quarter,
20.
20, 20 a
Plus
quarter.
shipping if you're doing print stuff, or no shipping if it's PDF.
It's pretty
And
good.
it comes with 2 perks now. The perk number 1 perk is half off all PDFs in the catalog, and that's a lot of stuff. So it could save you thousands of dollars actually just for being a subscriber. And then a discount on the PDFs themselves. The new HuntQuest releases. That's part of it. And now a new perk just added is a shipping discount credit offsetting whatever shipping you pay on this Kickstarter. So because we didn't send this book to our HuntQuest customers automatically, because it's a kind of a rule of HuntQuest that we send new material. So we didn't do that with this book, and it means that they have to manually order it. But if they are already in HuntQuest, then they're automatically going to get that credit piped into their account as game dollars, and it'll be like $9 if you're an American, or more if you're a foreign backer. It's up to the amount, up to $29, and then you can spend that later on stuff. So we're doing that as a perk to HuntQuest. It's a drive to bring people into the fold. And
good idea.
And just remember, guys, when you look at their prices, they're a small company, but they've been in continuous business for 40 years, and it's every bit of their stuff. And I'm afraid I didn't get much in your board game side, but all the reviews on your block games and the few other games you have been outstanding. So, block wargaming, guys, if you don't know it, is you have your board, but your counters are blocks and they're not face up; they face towards you. So there's a fog of war aspect that other types of war games don't have.
Oh, Stratego.
Yeah. You got perfect analogy. Yeah, and the antidote to the prices is also HuntQuest, because half off makes a big difference. Half off makes a great big difference.
Yeah.
So we really do encourage people to think about HuntQuest if you're in. It's not even a binding situation. You can join it, stick with us for a while, and if you got to leave, you got to leave. It's okay.
There's a link, folks, up on the screen. It's in the comments section. Yeah. Basically, it's columbiagames.com/HuntQuest.
Yeah, that's just an umbrella named for our subscription, and it's new stuff, and it comes out every 3 months. It's $20, and then it's got these other perks that while you're a subscriber, you can save a lot of money on stuff. So,
yeah, if you're like me and you were a LootQuest subscriber for many years, and then realize you're getting T-shirts that you don't wear and tchotchkes that you don't want, and you're overpaying for LootQuest, something like HuntQuest will be something that you can actually use as a gamer. I just actually canceled my LootQuest subscription earlier this week, and this would be a lot cheaper way to get something in the mail every couple of months that I'll actually use and look forward to, as opposed to I don't know, another Night of the Living Dead T-shirt. So
yeah, each little HuntQuest issue comes with kind of a variety of stuff. The most recent one that we just did came with a keep, a walled castle type thing in Ivinia, and then it came with 2 different guild articles about weapon crafters and about courtesans.
You finally gave me some more articles to fill this out. This was pretty thin.
Yeah, the guilds are a project. We're working on them. We are working on them step by step. So there's 2 more done really now.
Good. Cal, it's scrolling on the bottom there, Cal.
I'll give another more direct link. That's a shortened link. Hold on.
We'll go
the weapon crafter article was very appreciated. I missed that that was the one thing that I missed that you guys haven't updated for years with the weapon crafting rules from Harn Master 1E, and I'm glad you guys made it like a focus of an article. And the article itself is pretty interesting about the whole business of weapon crafting.
Yeah, because there's a business, right? That's what's so much more interesting. And then the courtesans is also a business, and
Yep.
you can look that up if you don't know what we're talking about. But so it's great stuff. And so that's just a kind of a mixed bag, a variety pack that shows up every 3 months, and you come to love it. And it's in truth, there's a number of subscribers that aren't playing; they just like the read. They just like the good read. And
Oh, well, that's
maybe
So,
good.
you appreciate this, Grant. So, I have a friend named Tim Shorts who likes to put out zines, and he does these. He puts out a lot of short forms. Like he'll detail a shop, or he'll detail like a small site or an NPC, and he'll do a front and back card, and it's packed full of stuff, and people love it. He has his passion, but he likes to get into the life of of a fantasy setting. So one day he asked me, "Hey Rob, does Harn have something about charcoalers in there? The guys who go in the wood, harvest wood and burn it for charcoal." And I said, "Guess what? I just got one my last Harn quest," and I shared it with him, and he said, "Yeah," and that gave him the foundation to do his own research for what he came out with for his own guys. So that was neat that I was able to pull out. Yeah, here's an article about charcoalers.
right. And who even thinks about that in any other product or setting that you can buy? Who even thinks about charcoalers?
Yeah.
And that charcoaler guys came with like I don't know what they were, but they came with like 3 or 4 adventure hooks, just outright adventure hooks.
Right.
That's something you guys been really good about in recent years.
Oh,
You'll have
sure.
a sidebar with actual split venture ideas involving this.
Right. And they're organic and system neutral adventures too. And they it's about the story. So they're who the charcoalers in the Moro project. Yes.
Okay.
I wonder if they're doing the same thing in the Morrow project. I don't know. Knowing Dave,
I'll have to Google that. I wonder if it's still currently supported. I know it's from back in the day, but
Oh, I suppose David's going to tell us. Yeah.
we have
He
all the
will.
old world skills. It's true. The Morrow project was the post-apocalyptic game where people were trying to live off the land again. All right.
yeah, I
Well,
think his stick was you woke up
yeah.
in the middle of after the apocalypse, and now you have
No,
to
I guess
survive.
it's like the game Fallout, right? You're coming out of your survival shelter. Wow. Well, I'm gonna say this was really cool.
This was
Grant,
fun.
Lots of fun.
You know, again, Harn has been part of my I don't know my mental default of fantasy settings for RPGs for years, but now I mean, Forgotten Realms I could give a flying fig Newton about, and Greyhawk will never come back, but Harn is ever living and stuck.
Never, ever,
And
forever.
again, the default timeline does not change. Unlike if you're a fan of Greyhawk, it changed multiple times. I've given up on Forgotten Realms. I'm not even sure what time frame it's in now.
They,
But
they
I
never fulfilled the promise of the gray box.
no. But
Oh, I'm sure the new movie will fill you in on Forgotten Realms.
I'm sure.
I don't know. I think the new movie looks like fun, but
It might be fun, but it's not going
Yeah,
to.
it looks like fun.
what sold me with that whole segment on Speak Undead, and I looked it up, and they got it mostly right. And yeah, I could see that actually happening in a bunch of PCs. Foul up their Speak Undead spell.
Well,
Right on. Well, it definitely been lots of fun. I can do it again
yeah,
sometime.
no, thank you.
definitely.
Yep.
Thanks
I'm
for
more
coming
than
by.
happy to. And like I said, we picked up, by my count, at least a half dozen backers in the last hour and a half.
And 10
Yeah.
days to go, guys. 10 days to go, guys.
So
That's
you
right.
got time. Don't wait too long. I'm going to be doing it tonight myself. But it's also nice to know that I'm going to get my Kickstarter reward in about 3 or 4 months as opposed to Far West, 11 years and counting. Still coming.
man.
But this is the kind of Kickstarter. If you don't trust Kickstarters, this is the Kickstarter you can trust.
You can
Alright.
trust.
Yeah.
You can trust it. We're real. We're going to do.
They're real. They
what
have
we
they have
say.
a great history.
This is the real deal,
Right.
guys. I'm very picky about my Kickstarters just because of that, and this looks like the real deal.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I do love the cover art to Han World. I feel like I should be seeing something similar on I don't know, a Bible from the 1400s as one of the plates in the
Mhm.
inside.
Wait. David said he's going to bed, not before you back.
and Dave, Dave, you're an
You have
analyst.
a similar style cover for the bestiary, right?
Yeah. Yep. That's the woodcut style that Richard Luschek is just a genius at, and
Oh, it's amazing.
you can look at that, study that really carefully. There's all kinds of little detail.
Oh yeah, all those little circles are actually stuff found in Harn.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty neat.
Oh, David already backed. Thank you, Dave. Well,
Yes, David.
Good
Thank
man.
you.
Good book.
folks, huge thanks to Grant. Really, this was a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
thank you, Grant.
Thank
Rob, Glenn,
Love it.
thank you
Yes.
both. We actually joined the 2 Friday night shows for the first time, so this was fun.
Wow.
And as usual, folks, my normal sign out: be safe, be well, God bless, roll those dice, roll them well. I will be back tomorrow night with an 8 p.m. live stream with myself, my wife Rach, Gamers Health. We'll be giving a little update of last week's ToubleCon and other health-related updates for us, and talking about other stuff
That
for
was
you
weird.
all. So hopefully we see you live this live stream tomorrow night. All right, folks.
Awesome.
Good
Bye.
night. God bless.
Good night, folks.
Good night.